It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be talking about a very popular topic after watching the last episode of The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 3, which was called Monsters. We're going to talk about the importance of Jesus and Morgan's fight. So before we actually get into the moment they started fighting and what led up to it, we first have to look back a bit as well and take a look at the events of episode 2 and look at what led to Morgan getting into that state in the first place and going into his clear mode. So when we go back to the episode when they attacked that outpost where they got those prisoners from, we can see that after Morgan was shot and escaped his death, he basically snapped into his clear mode. So one thing I want to mention here is that this is part of his curse. Like he said to Rick, the weak people like him will populate the earth, and they would have to watch all of the close people around them die. And it's part of their curse that they don't die. They have to live and continue watching people around them that they love die. And that's actually why he said, "I don't die," in the previous episode as well. But after that moment when he was shot and escaped his death, he basically snapped into his clear mode. Morgan was in clear mode and he was basically murdering everybody. He wasn't asking questions, looking to see whether they're surrendering. He wasn't giving them a chance. He was just murdering them in cold blood. And it was actually the moment when the light hit him that he snapped out of his all clear mode. But then what pushed him back towards that mindset was seeing Jared. So of course Jared is the savior who murdered Benjamin in season 7. So seeing Jared pushed Morgan over again, and he was just about to kill Jared and possibly all of the other prisoners if it wasn't for Jesus and if Jesus hadn't stopped him. Morgan already had a history with this savior. Jared murdered Benjamin. So for Morgan to face Jared at that time, it was like a trigger for him to want to take vengeance, to snap back into his clear mode. And Jared says something very interesting, which leads to more build-up for this whole kind of theme about what is good, what is bad, who is good, who is bad. So they're building up this fact that there are good saviors and there are bad saviors. And, the whole dilemma regarding who to kill, who not to kill. Jared says, "Did you get transferred too?" So it seems like after Benjamin's death, Gavin was so angry and frustrated with Jared that he actually transferred him to Simon's outpost, the satellite station, which hints that there are some saviors like Gavin that may not necessarily deserve to die. They may be reasonable people. They may just have been doing what they were doing to survive. They may be redeemable to an extent. So just a side note here, Morgan's outpost is actually the satellite station, like I said, since the painting that Simon took off of the hilltop is hanging on the wall of that outpost. So that's basically confirmation that the satellite outpost is Simon's outpost. And another kind of interesting fact is that the 50 caliber gun that Rick and Daryl were looking for in the outpost that they were at was moved to Gavin's outpost, which we know because one of the saviors said it was moved to Gavin's outpost. And that's actually exactly where Carol and Ezekiel are leading the Kingdom Army. And it was actually at that outpost and using the same 50 caliber weapon where we had the saviors basically murdering several Kingdom members. But going back to the topic about Jared and Morgan, right after Morgan enters the light and basically sees the prisoners, there's a moment where you can actually see Jared is holding on to his weapon still. So that could mean one of two things. One is it's not actually real. Morgan is thinking it. Morgan is on high alert. He's thinking that Jared has the weapon, so I'm gonna kill him. The other way to think about it is that Jared hold on to his weapon as long as he could. Although, as Morgan went closer, there was no weapon. So this leads me to think that it was most likely that Morgan was just thinking that Jared had a rifle in his hand, when in fact he didn't. Going forward a little bit, when we see the prisoners walking along the road, we have Morgan and Jared. Morgan obviously has a rifle and Jared has his hands tied. As Jared is walking as a prisoner, he's basically pushing Morgan's buttons and trying to make him react. Jared says, "I've been wondering what's different about you. I finally got it. It's your armor. It's different. It's smaller. Almost like it shrunk or something." "Oh shit, is that the kid's who's dead, isn't it? Why the hell would you wear that? It didn't do shit for him." So it's basically revealed here, and I didn't catch that until they actually explicitly said it, but Morgan was wearing Benjamin's armor. And Jared is basically rubbing it in Morgan's face that he couldn't do anything for Benjamin, that the armor didn't do anything for Benjamin. And it goes back to him wanting Morgan to react, to retaliate, to do something that may put Jared in a position that he has the upper hand. He got on Morgan's nerves. But all of this discussion leads to the theme of the last 2 episodes, which is we have 2 types of philosophies. One, to kill them all, which is the philosophy of Morgan and Tara, and the other philosophy is that you only kill when it's necessary, which is the philosophy of Jesus. And likewise, we have 2 types of saviors. We have one type of savior that fights back and wants to escape and basically go back to the way things were. And for this group, change can't happen. They're too far gone. And, the characters that belong to this category are Jared, for example. And then there's another group of saviors who are just following the rules and trying to survive. These are the reasonable people who are just trying to survive, who, like I said, can be redeemed. Gavin is one of them. Dylan is another savior. Dylan is obviously the one that surrendered, and he's the one that stopped the saviors from running away. So we have these 2 types of philosophies, and in the same way, we have these 2 types of saviors. So there is this theme going on about what is good, what is bad, who is good, who is bad. And this is not just with Morgan and Jesus and Tara and the saviors. We also see it in the discussion between Morales and Rick, which I'm going to do a separate video on. But that being said, we see that they're kind of testing the audience in terms of what is good, what is bad. Do these saviors all deserve to die? Or can some of them be redeemed? And just to wrap things up, to bring things full circle, if we go back to when Morgan and Jesus started to fight, it was because Morgan was just about to kill Jared and Jesus stopped him. So Morgan says, "We do the same thing they do, but we go on. You see, we are the same." So he's basically saying, we're the same people. They're doing things to survive. We're doing things to survive. It's not that what we do is right or what they do is right, but we're all just trying to survive. That's all we're trying to do. And, there's no way around it. We have to kill all of them or they will kill all of us. That's where Morgan stands. And in a way, there's some truth to that. Because there are some saviors like Jared that may not necessarily be redeemable, and they may end up killing a character that Jesus or Morgan care about if they get the chance. But then, on the flip side, Jesus says there is war and then there's peace. We're going to have to live with these people after. We're going to have to find a way to peace. And likewise, there is truth to that as well. Not all the saviors are bad. There's Gavin, there's Dylan that can be redeemed. There are workers at the sanctuary that are not fighters. We shouldn't be killing them. We're going to have to live with them. And what if Gavin or Dylan or Jared is a loved one to one of those workers? And what if killing them will want them to retaliate in some way? And maybe that will push them to want to fight because of what we did. So there's some truth to what Jesus is saying as well. Like he says, we're going to have to live with these people after the war. There's a time that we're at war when they're shooting at us, when we have to kill them. And there's a point when they're surrendering, that they have their hands up, that we shouldn't kill them, that we should give them the benefit of the doubt. We should be cautious, but we should give them the benefit of the doubt and try to see if they can change. This is actually very interesting because that's exactly where Morgan stood in the last season. He was all about all life is precious and that we should give people a chance no matter what they have done. He did the same thing with the wolf. He didn't kill the wolf, and the wolf is no different than Jared in many ways. So it's cool that Morgan has kind of changed in such a drastic way. And then continuing from there, once Morgan attacks Jesus and they're kind of fighting, and once things cool down a little bit, we have Morgan saying, "What?" And he's confused, he doesn't know what's going on. So we can see Morgan was in clear mode when he attacked Jesus. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know who he was fighting. Morgan continues with saying, "I know I'm not right, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong." And there's a lot of truth to that. He's not right. You shouldn't kill everybody, but he's not wrong. We shouldn't be risking the lives of the people by keeping some of these prisoners. Obviously, with Jesus bringing these prisoners back to the hilltop, that's a risk. I don't think that's the best thing to do. In my opinion, it would have been smarter if they went to one of those outposts or one location, they had some guards, put all of the prisoners there. That would have been a more safer approach. That's basically taking some of what Morgan says and taking some of what Jesus says and kind of bringing them together and creating some sort of balance. And then the last thing we see with Morgan is that he leaves. So Morgan almost kills Jesus when he is in his clear mode. And he believes that he has to leave, because if he doesn't, then there might be a point when he would do something that he's going to regret. So he can't trust himself enough to know that the next time he's in that mindset, he is not going to murder Jesus or anyone he cares about. So that's why Morgan leaves. And, one thing I want to mention here is that we could make a case that Morgan is replacing Michonne's story arc from the comics instead of Carol, in terms of going away for a little bit. So we might be seeing the story remixed like that. But just to bring everything together, the importance of Jesus and Morgan's fight is that the fight is more than just an epic fight between two warriors. It's actually a clever way to bring a few facts together and make the characters and the audience question the moral decision. Who is bad? Who is good? What is right? And what is wrong? So if we put everything together, we see that there's a lot of elements and depth to Morgan and Jesus' fight. And it actually tells us a lot about the writers and how good they are at what they do. Most of the time. And that they had everything planned and everything was leading up to this moment when Morgan and Jesus were fighting, which caused Morgan to leave. So that's basically everything I wanted to share. But I want to know everybody's opinions about this fight between Morgan and Jesus. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.